Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I got a triple header for you today. We're going to be doing more coffee talk headlines, also some epic trout fishing on the White River with Eli and his wife, and also have a Star Trek episode. And actually, Eli and I decoded it together. After we fished, they came by. We made some trout, and then they stayed the night, made them breakfast, and then they were off to go look into some caves. I couldn't go. I was wore out from the fishing, and also had to get ready for today's show. But gosh, this is crazy, you guys. Look at this Star Trek episode of basically a child being offered up for sacrifice after they burn pink incense. We're going to start with this Star Trek episode, and let me give you the backdrop so you're not confused about this. It's about a kidnapped boy who is fated to become the sacrifice for this entire world that you see on your screen here. And Eli and I decoded this one together. He caught a lot of stuff that I didn't, so I thought that was pretty amazing because we see this stuff now. Here you can kind of see the pink incense rising up from these altars. Of course, that must represent like sacrificial altars, right? But they're right in our face with this stuff. First, they have a ceremony that you see here, and they're burning this pink Acrenodrome. We have to say that differently on YouTube now because they, the algorithms pick up on all this stuff and they can start flagging our video. But look at all this pink, you guys. Let's take a look at this. Look at this. It's clear that these are altars, right? This is what this is. And then they've got the child in the middle here in front of the entire, all these people showing up to this event. And he is above this grotesque face with water pouring out of its mouth. Look at all the pink.
As the first servant dedicates himself to Majalis.
Now, the name of the world is called Majalis, and I'll get into what all that means as well. But basically, this child, they hook him up to fiber optic cables where they drain the life out of his body.
All of Majalis dedicates itself to him.
It's beautiful.
Joyce!
Let's back up here.
Joyce!
Here's the grotesque face, and water pours out of it. This could be like Molech. Who knows what this is? But what you're going to also see is a focus on the pineal gland of this woman who gives the child up for sacrifice.
The machine needs the neural network of a child to function. Our founders designed it that way. We don't know why.
They hook up all these fiber optic cables to him. You heard her say the neural network, and that is the theme of what these people are after. They want to hack our neurological system. This is why, as we showed you on yesterday's show, a lot of people lost their taste and smell. There were a lot of neurological issues, problems, based on yesterday's show. After the pandemic, and you can fill in the rest of the blanks with why that happened and how it happened, but it wasn't just people who got the poker, it was people who also got the disease. Now, the previous child who was sacrificed, apparently every so many years, a new child is sacrificed. And this was what was left of the former child after it was drained of all its energy. Now, it looks somewhat like a gray alien almost, but he calls it a child.
It's a child.
There you see all the fiber optic cables. Now, I wonder if this is a metaphor for the fiber optic network that we have now. stealing our children's energy through their devices, through gaming, through their black mirrors, their handheld devices. I wonder if somewhere in the fiber optic technology, there is some kind of way that they can draw energy out of those looking into the screen, sucking out the energy through the window to the soul, which is the eyes. There's a very heavy emphasis on the eyes, going all the way back to the book of Genesis, isn't there? Eve's eyes were opened, weren't they? This is when the deception happened, the window to the soul. And now we have a direct connection here of this child being sacrificed and all these fiber optic cables hooked up to it.
Whole civilization. Whole year. This is all founded on the suffering of a child.
Now there you saw her headdress, and of course they're pushing this RH negative trait thing, obviously, and there's a connection to that as well. But look at the pineal gland with the mandala like thing covering her pineal gland. So all of this goes back to Acrenodrome. Now these people are called the monopolies, which you heard a little bit earlier, and this woman's name is Allura. So Eli looked up Allura's name, and this is something I didn't catch, and I probably wouldn't have caught it had he not seen this. But her name means beautiful dream, dreamer. Wow. It also means the Lord is my light. Allura. Now, what else is going on? Well, it means God is light, dreamer, which I think is fitting because of what they did to the child, didn't they? Now, the word Mahal probably sounds familiar to you as well. Sounds like Taj Mahal, doesn't it? We did a lot of decodes on Trump's Snake Eyes Taj Mahal because that movie was filmed at the Taj Mahal, at Trump's Taj Mahal, Snake Eyes. And we had figured out that the snake eyes were really about the two shots, something that had not happened yet in our reality, in our timeline, depicted in an old movie. Now, I looked up the word Mahal too, because I wasn't sure what technically that meant. And apparently it refers to a classification of cultivated land. Basically, it's a second-class rice paddy field. So, weird. I don't know what that might mean, but that's what it means. What else is going on? Well, this is unreal. This is what these people are up to. It's all about hacking the neurological system. It's about child sacrifice, of course. This is where they probably derive the most energy. And as I said, I wonder if there's something to the fiber optic and the black mirrors and somehow them drawing energy through our devices. This boy's hooked up to the fiber optic network. So that's the update on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. If you hadn't gotten up to speed on that, I will put together a playlist for you guys. We're getting close to the end of the second season now. So probably, I know we're definitely going to have a decode tomorrow on more aspects of Strange New World that basically reiterate everything I just showed you here. We're going to actually go through an episode that talks about the amnesia that the crew suffers when they go down to a planet, and it's caused by electromagnetic radiation. And also they suggest some kind of virus. So virus and 5G, everything we've been talking about over the course of the last 5 years, they keep repeating it in these themes, but really nobody's picking up on it except the people on this channel and a few others out there. Now, I got some footage of my trout fishing trip with Eli and his wife Jessie. We had a lot of fun. I want to show that to you guys now. Look at this beautiful river. This is the White River, just below Bull Shoals Dam. And the river level was so low, we were actually able to walk out onto the riverbed, which is a lot easier. Fishing from the bank is treacherous when the water's up because it's very slippery and the banks are steep. But when the water's low, you can walk right out of the riverbed. Now you got to be careful because it's under a dam, right? So at any time they could be letting water out. And that's exactly what happened. They started letting water out and the water started rising, and it's a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit misleading. Like you're standing there 1 minute and you're fine, and all of a sudden the water's up to your waist and in your chest, and you could easily get washed away. Now, let's take a look at this because we actually got a visit from a massive bald eagle. That thing was probably 2 or 3 feet tall, sitting up in a tree just above us. I'm going to try to zoom in on it, see if we can see it, but the video won't do it justice. The thing was just, it landed right on top of us, and we just looked at it. It stayed there for a few minutes. We just looked up and stared at it. We were like, wow, that is just amazing. If you've never seen a bald eagle within 20 to 25 yards of where you're standing, it is a majestic sight. Interesting, we were just talking about bald eagles, weren't we? A couple videos ago, I showed you guys a bald eagle capturing a goat or a lamb or something off the side of a cliff and carrying it off. And then, you know, all of a sudden it appears in our reality. This is a common theme on this channel. We start talking about something and all of a sudden it appears in nature. And these are just little clues that God gives us that we're on the right track, isn't it? So without further ado, let's play through some of this. We did almost catch our limit of trout while we were wade fishing in the White River. Let's take a look. Out here with Eli and his wife out on the river. Now this amazing blanket of fog was just over the water, and it reminded me of the book of Genesis when God created the world and the Spirit of God was above the waters. Foggy down here, but waiting for our first fish. The land of fog. And look, you can see right down through the bottom. I'm probably standing in 2 feet of water here. And wow. See if these fish start biting. There's Eli and his wife back here fishing a hole. They started catching them in a hole further up, and I was down the way here. But look at this. You could almost see the Spirit of God moving in this fog. It was just crazy. I can't explain it. Got 2 on so far. Look how magical this looks. I wouldn't have kept this littler one, but he had to get my hook out. So these are about, this longer one's probably like 12, 13 inches. Shorter one's about 10 inches. So there's the cat so far. It's a nice one. I have the stringer tied to my belt loop. And just look at how amazing that is. It's like a blanket of fog. Just kind of moves around. Wow. Eli caught his first fish. So this is the hole we were fishing. We were standing on kind of a sandbar, but it's not really sandbar, it's a rock bar. And then back here where this deep green water is where the fish were kind of holding, because the water would come off of the rocks here and down into this hole. And it was cool water. It was pretty cold. I mean, it must have been in the low 70s or high 60s. On a night crawler. That's Eli's fish. Yeah, did Eli tell you I lost the other can of worms? It was in my pocket and it just floated away. Yeah. So I had a can of worms. There were 2 cans of worms. They were like little boxes, and I had one in my pocket. and I went to go grab them, and they had popped out of my pocket and probably just floated down the river. So I'm sure somebody got some use out of those worms downriver somewhere.
It looks like a wave of fog.
Look at this.
Like a tidal wave. That's amazing.
See it moving? You can almost...
Look, it's like...
It's just... I can't even describe it to you guys. It looked like a wave, like a surfer would surf a wave, and it just started coming towards us.
Like a tidal wave of fog. Ah, it's like instant air conditioning. Ah, it feels so good. So we've all caught fish, which is awesome. Jessie just caught her first fish. Let me see if I can pull it up here. We're all starting to get bites. It's cool down here on the water. Wow, that's a nice one. Wow. That's a 14-incher probably.
I think Jessie probably caught the biggest trout of the day. This one is 14, 15 inches maybe.
Nice fish. All rainbows. No browns yet. Got one on.
So I wanted to catch one live for you guys so you could see what it's like to catch a trout. They're actually pretty easy to catch once you get them. They're not big fish. They can fight. But I was using like 4-pound test.
Ooh. It's got some spunk to it. So he jumps out of the water. Oh. And the current. Figure I'd get one on video for you guys. We're just out here having fun. What a fun time. Yep. There's the setup.
So that's what I was using. Let me get a better picture over here.
Oh.
So that's a, those are salmon eggs. And that's just a little hook with a, I don't know what they call these, a little weight on it. That gets it on the bottom because most trout, when they're in these holes, they're kind of hugging the bottom, especially in the summer. You can surface fish for trout certain times of the year, but mostly I like to do the deep dropping kind of. So that's the setup there.
Hook with a sinker on it already, and 3 salmon eggs. Now Eli and Jessie are catching it on worms, night crawlers. I lost a whole can of night crawlers. It was in my pocket, and I went to look and it was gone. So I must have just floated on down river. Somebody will get some use out of it. That is a bald eagle.
So here's the bald eagle. It landed right on top of us. There it is, right there in the tree.
Oh man, that thing is massive. Look at the size of it. Wow. Camera probably won't even do it justice. All right, caught quite a bit of fish so far. We're going.
And you can kind of see the water rising slowly. The sandbars just all disappear.
For our limit. And then Eli and Jessie are coming over, and we're going to do some cave tours tomorrow, make some trout tonight, have a good time. We got out just in time. The river came up, and it took every ounce of our strength to get out of there, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty.
Is that the trophy fish?
It might be.
Look at that.
There's Eli's trophy fish there. I think that one was close to one of the bigger ones. As you can see, that's a good 12, 13, 14 inch trout there. So that's cool. Now, the Eli is not my son. I know a lot of you thought that Eli was my son. No, he's from the channel, and we fished. This is our 3rd time fishing together, and so it's just a lot of fun to hang out with Eli, and he loves to trout fish.
I think that is. All right. Eli caught this amazing perch. Put him.
So he also caught this perch. I forgot to show you guys him catching that, but here's the actual perch after we cleaned it.
In the light, looks better. Right there with the trout, just hanging out with the trout. That's a pretty nice sized perch. So cook him up tonight.
So that's some footage from the fishing trip. It was fun. Great exercise, getting out there in nature. And I think that's really cool. Let me check in with you guys, and then we'll get into some strange headlines and have some more coffee talk today. Some weird stuff going on in this world. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. It got 95 degrees that day we fished. I couldn't even believe how hot it was. You don't feel it until you come up out of the river. And that's when you really feel it. But it got hot. It's been, we're experiencing the heat wave as well. So, yeah, Eli may be in the chat. I don't know if he comes into the chat. But this is our third time fishing together. So, now let's get into some of these headlines, you guys. Crazy. Now, this one was spooky. They found this weird fish in Idaho. A shark on a riverbank in a landlocked state. We talk a lot about portals, and I always wonder sometimes if there's some strange stuff going on as these people are experimenting with portals. How did a shark get to Idaho, a landlocked state? They're saying that somebody dropped it off there, but where did they get it from, is the question. Did this thing manifest somehow? They're calling it possibly a prank. Let's read the story. Idaho Department of Fish and Game suspects someone left the creature by the Salmon River as a prank. Officials suspect something fishy happened along the Salmon River in Idaho. A strange creature that turned out to be a shark was recently spotted on the banks of the Salmon River, which runs through the landlocked state. Calls and email began pouring in yesterday claiming they found a shark washed up on the shores of the Salmon River. They investigated it. They found an odd, dead creature at the site, referenced in the calls, and later determined the animal was a salmon shark. Look at this thing. Salmon sharks can grow over 10 feet long, but their average size is usually between 6.5 and 8 feet. Maximum weight is more than 660 pounds. Of course, it's 660 pounds, right? They are typically found in coastal and oceanic environments of the subarctic and temperate North Pacific Ocean, and their maximum age is 25 years. They eat salmon, squid, birds, and herring. How did this shark get in this landlocked river? They don't believe the salmon shark came from the Salmon River and suspect the creature was placed on the river bank as a joke. The department's social media post assured Salmon River visitors that no shark are swimming around in Idaho. This brings into question also underwater portals, right? Who's to say? If these waterways aren't connected somehow to the deep. We've brought this subject up frequently, haven't we? Talking about Mariana Trenches and these different trenches around the world. Talking about the lower waters from which part of the floodwaters came during Noah's flood. And we postulated that possibly these waterways may be connected to these underwater places. And what would stop a shark from finding this waterway, especially if they knew there was a food source, like a bunch of salmon, a shark that eats salmon? Wow. Let's keep reading here. Seeing no sharks have been observed swimming up our fish ladders lately, and the only known shark that can live in freshwater is the bull shark, we think it's safe to assume that somebody dropped this on the shore for a good laugh. Well, now, who would do that, why, and how, is the question. Right? Where would they get the fish? Why would they take the time? Why wasn't this caught on camera somewhere on the way to do this prank, right? Some camera must have caught someone driving in a pickup truck with a shark in the back of it or something. Huh. But they just write this off as a prank. While sharks in Idaho are almost unheard of, they are common in other parts of the country and have been responsible for attacks on humans. According to notice they say almost unheard of. According to the Tracking Sharks website, there have been 31 shark bite attacks in the U.S. so far this year. Let's take another look at this thing. It's pretty big. I mean, we don't really have a size comparison, but just based on the amount of teeth, this is no small shark. Weird, right? Now, what else do we have today in the headlines? Oh, look at this. 7-year-old boy was attacked by a bear in the backyard of his New York home. A lot of animal attacks, aren't there, going on recently? Something has changed in either people or the animals. We're not quite sure yet. Could be a mix of both. But the boy survived, fortunately, but he was attacked by a bear in New York. Now, for those of you that live in New York, when's the last time you heard of something like this? This is not common. Let's read the story. A 7-year-old boy was attacked by a bear in the backyard of his Winchester County, New York home, taken to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. He was in the yard of the North Castle home when he was attacked around 11:16 a.m. North Castle Police Department said in a news release. They have not released the specifics of his injuries. The parents were right there and assisted the child fearlessly. They found the bear still in the yard when they showed up. He continued to present a danger to the first responders and was euthanized at the scene. Our concern was he did not retreat. So at one point he did advance. And when you have that many human beings, I would think that an animal of that kind would normally retreat, and it did not. So animals are losing their fear of humans. The normal reaction of bears is to run away, especially with heightened activity and noise. They usually retreat. Now, they don't mention anything about the bear having cubs or anything. So it's a strange behavior. Weird. What else is going on in the headlines? Well, Bo Mama's in the headlines. Apparently, they're saying that his chef drowned accidentally. Now, how do you determine if a chef drowns accidentally? Here's the chef, and he died. They say he drowned. Let's refresh this page and see if we can get some audio on this. Let's see here.
Tragic story involving former President Obama's personal chef. The body of Tafari Campbell was found yesterday in a pond near the Obama's Martha's Vineyard estate after police were alerted Sunday about a man struggling in the water. The Obamas say Campbell's drowning death has left them brokenhearted. Scott McFarland has more.
Possible drowning.
Massachusetts State Police say divers found the 45-year-old yesterday morning after an hours-long search. Police had been called to the Obama residence Sunday night after someone had reported a possible drowning in a nearby pond.
As far as we know, they're currently in the water.
The body of a man was found about 100 feet from the shore in roughly 8 feet of water. He was later identified as former White House sous chef Tafari Campbell. Authorities said the Obama family was not staying at that home during the accident.
The only thing you have left to do is just put the labels on and pop the top.
Campbell could be seen here in a White House video during the Obama administration making homemade beer for the president. In a statement, the Obamas said they first met Campbell during his time working at the White House. They say they then asked him to stay on with the family after the president left office. The Obamas added that they were brokenhearted over the loss of someone they described as, quote, a beloved part of our family.
Weird story. Now, I have my intuition about what may have happened. We did a lot of research on chefs, haven't we? The last famous chef that we looked into was the chef that served Prince. And remember, we found that chef was operating some kind of a restaurant right there where Prince lived. Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince. And that chef was also, before he was Prince's chef, he was the chef to the royal family. Now, what made that connection very weird is that Prince actually died on Queen Elizabeth's birthday, April 21st. Now, we couldn't really figure out the connection back then, but now I'm starting to wonder, what do chefs do? What do you guys think this could be about? Let's see who gets it. Let's see who's on the same wavelength that I'm on. in some possible theories as to what's going on with these chefs to these famous people. Let's see what your guys' thoughts are. Serving the king's meat. Yes, David. There you go. That's exactly what I was thinking. Let's see who can take it a step further. Yep, Dayton got it. What are these chefs serving, and what do they know? Is it possible that the chefs were given some kind of strange meat and they were able to identify it, and then they were threatening to tell? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Now, some of you might think that's a stretch, but the very fact that they came out with a news story with a cover story of how the chef died, and that even made the news, is a little bit weird, isn't it? Why is that even a news story? And why are they saying, oh, we now know what happened to this chef? It's just weird to me. Let's read this article, see if we get any more clues. They're calling it a paddleboard tragedy in 8 feet of water. That's not that much water. Like what did he fall off the paddleboard? Most people I know that are on a paddleboard know how to swim, right? How do you drown on a paddleboard? That's weird. You have a flotation device right there. It'd be different if he was in like a wetsuit and he was like free swimming and ran out of energy. But if you're on a paddleboard, how do you drown from that? Let's read about what they say here. Paddleboarding at Edgerton Great Pond on the night of July 23rd, when he was seen struggling in the water. Weird. Who saw him struggling in the water? That's a question. His cause of death was determined to be accidental drowning due to submersion in a body of water. Was he near his paddleboard? Like, there's a lot of missing information here, isn't there? They just go on to talk about him and his life and with the president and all this. Searchers spent hours looking for Campbell the night he was reported missing, and his body was recovered the following morning. Recovery was made approximately 100 feet from shore at a depth of 8 feet. And what was he doing paddleboarding at night? That's really weird as well. Huh. So that's about all they say. Let's see what the comments say. I'm just curious what the comments say. 4,000. That's a lot of comments for such a benign story, right? Because Obama's not even really in the news anymore. Oh, here we go with the cover stories. As a former lifeguard, I've had to pull more than one good swimmer out of a pool. So that's just like whitewashing everything. Look at all the thumbs down on this. People aren't buying it. That's like a person with a life vest drowning, pretty much. Accidents happen all the time. Look at Epstein. See? People are onto this. Look at all the thumbs up this one got. So, something weird going on. I'm sure there's more to the story. I don't know. I don't know about this guy. I mean, he could have been saying stuff on social media. I mean, I could dig into this, investigate a little bit more, but who knows what happened. Obviously, he knew something. Now, here's a weird happening going on. As we all know, Southern California got hit by a hurricane. Hurricane Hillary, by the way, right? Think of the odds of that. And apparently, Ojai, which is in California, up in the mountains near Santa Barbara, they got hit with an earthquake just before the hurricane. They call it a hurriquake. It's a new terminology. Makes you wonder what this all has to do if the two are connected. They most undoubtedly have to be connected, don't they? Almost like some kind of judgment hitting California. Who knows? But this is what was going on up in Ojai. And of course, you have to put this Buddha front and center from Dharma and Dog. Some kind of a gift shop or store or something. And they're talking about how they had 2 natural disasters in one afternoon. and how this heavy object of the Buddha was jostled about during the 5.1 magnitude earthquake. I can't even believe that. That's a pretty big earthquake. So, this is what's going on up in the mountains of Ojai. A double header natural disaster. Anyway, let's go back into the chat. It's pretty much all I had for you guys today. Get back into Star Trek. Let's go into the chat for a bit. All right. Good morning, everybody. Hurricane. I heard about the tectonic plates and the pressure of the hurricane. That's interesting. Yeah, the two seem like they're definitely connected, don't they? Yep, it'll probably become a new catchphrase. One chance is a love triangle gone bad with the chef. Something. Have I ever noodled? No, I've not noodled. I actually have a fear of dark water. That's why I felt so at home in the clear river. That was because you could see to the bottom. So, but yeah, I have a fear of dark water. A phobia, I guess you call it. And you know, it's weird. Like, I follow a lot of fishing channels, and a lot of them are talking about a surge of sharks. Sharks are everywhere. And they're in places where they weren't before. So people go out fishing. Places like New England, they go to reel a fish in, and a shark bites it in half. And so you have to ask yourself, what is that about? And, you know, you would think that the authorities would make some kind of fishing season for the shark to get them under control, but instead, they're willing to sacrifice, for instance, the striper. I was watching I was actually reading a story about the striper fishing up in New England, and they were saying that they were getting these sharks that were biting the striper in half. Well, 9 times out of 10, a lot of people release the striper back into the water. Well, what good is it to release the fish back into the water when it gets bitten in half by a shark? It pretty much defeats the purpose of catch and release, doesn't it? You're wasting the fish. Might as well keep the fish and eat it. So, the fact that the authorities don't care that there's all these fish that are dying from sharks, you know, Fish and Game, they're supposed to monitor all this, right? And make sure the species survive and all this, but then they don't. That tells you something. They should have an open season for sharks to control the population, because sharks are overrunning all the fisheries. It's not just the striper, it's all of the controlled fisheries. And so the fact that the authorities aren't doing anything about that, and they're allowing all this wasted fish, that tells you everything you need to know right there. So, now I don't know what you would do with the shark. I don't know if some people eat shark or not, if they're any good to eat. But that would be the answer, right? Open season on sharks, or have a season for shark to get them back under control. Why are we letting sharks overrun the ocean? Not good, you guys. All right. What else is going on in the chat here? Are grasshoppers okay to eat because they chew cud and have a cloven foot, and crickets do not? I don't know, but I do know that certain insects in the Old Testament, those are allowed to be eaten. And John the Baptist ate locusts and honey. That's what he ate. Survived off of that. So Lydia says, Mako shark is delicious. I think I've had shark like one time. What was the name of that place? There's a place in, I think it's Pismo Beach. Let me see if I can remember the name of that place. Anyway, I tried shark on their menu once. It was really good. All right, what else is going on in here? Kim's had chocolate-covered grasshoppers before. Yeah, there's a little place in Pismo Beach, around the beach, where they have like chocolate and candy-covered insects. It's a whole store full of this stuff. They even have like chocolate-covered or candy-covered scorpions and stuff. Now, I've never been a fan of all that stuff. I guess it's a novelty. It's cool to look at. But I would not eat any of that stuff. It looks disgusting. Yes, the Queen says, because of the marine environmentalists demanding we leave them alone like PETA. It's just the fact that they think that they can control the wide open ocean. That's what gets me. And here's the thing. You guys know my thoughts on this. There should be no control on a single person on a boat fishing for their family. Now, if you want to put controls on commercial fishermen, which is unnatural, catching tons of fish, that's one thing. But to put controls on someone who's spending their own money to go out and fish, yes, there maybe should be an upper limit. Like, someone shouldn't just be able to go out and fish all day long. But if you got poles in the water and you're fishing, you should be able to catch a day's catch of any fish you want. Because it costs a lot of money. These people, some of these people on some of these fishing channels, their boats are $100,000, $200,000 boats. You know, already they're never going to make their money back fishing. They're just fishing for leisure and also to get some nice fish out of the ocean. And then not to mention all the tackle that they spend money on and bait and all these things. I mean, it's thousands of dollars just to go on a fishing trip these days. So these people go out on the ocean and then there's all these rules that they have to follow. Yeah, I guess shark's not really a clean meat. I didn't think of that. It doesn't have scales. Yeah, Joy, it's an unclean fish. But like hogs and stuff, they're unclean as well, right? But guess what? They're taking over all the southern states. So they have to kill them because otherwise they root up everything. In fact, when I went fishing with Eli and Jesse, we saw a bunch of holes, slop holes or hog holes where they're rooting out the bank. And this just causes erosion, it kills trees, and the wild hogs are going out of control, so they have to be taken care of and controlled. So what would God want us to do? Would he want us just to kill them and leave them on the bank or leave them to just rot? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Sharks have scales. They're just very tiny. Well, I can tell you this. You know, trout, some people might consider that an unclean fish. But if you look on it, they do have really tiny micro scales. You can only see them under a microscope. But yes, trout do have scales. They feel smooth, but they have tiny little scales. Kind of like a salmon. All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Isabel Alive. And who's this? And Tracy. Have a most blessed day. Horrible thunderstorms last night. Flooding in southeast Michigan. I'm sorry to hear that. Praying for you guys going through that. All right. Well, I'm going to get back on this Star Trek, you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I love you guys. Take care.